Stillwater Planning Commission meeting of March 1st is now called to order. The first item this evening is the consent docket. The consent docket consists of item A, which is C-Star Construction Services, and it's a final plat, SUB 2203. Do I hear a motion to either approve the consent docket or to pull anything off?
I move we approve the consent docket.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. We'll now vote. Motion passes 4-0. Okay. The next item on the agenda is public hearings, and I'll explain the process this evening for public hearings. We'll call for items on the agenda. The commission will hear briefly from staff first, then applicant and or their representative, then open the public hearing and hear from those in favor and or in opposition of the request. Before you come to the podium, please clearly state your name and address for the record. And before closing the public hearing, both staff, applicant, and or their representative will be provided an opportunity to respond, to provide additional information and answer any questions. After all interested parties have spoken, the public hearing will then be closed, and we will hear closing remarks and alternatives from staff. With that, we'll start with item A.
Good evening, Commissioners. Brady Moore from the City Manager's Office. Tonight, the first item before you is the short-term rental STR-0067 at 126 South Melrose Drive. The area map before you shows the hatch pattern, the location of the home that is just off of Melrose, north of University Avenue. As a reminder, under Ordinance 3435, short-term rentals, or STRs as they're commonly called, are to be licensed with the city if located within a residential RSL, RSS, or RT zoning district. As part of this licensing process, property owners within 300 feet of the subject property are notified of the STR application, and they have 30 days within to which to file an appeal to the licensing. So we received one letter. It should be in your packet that you've been able to review. And so with that, I will, before we open the public hearing, is there any questions that you have of staff?
Any questions from the commissioners?
On the map, Brady, can you show me where the address is of the person that filed the objection to the 133 South Monticello item?
Yeah, so no, I can pull it up. If you'll give me a second, I can pull it up for you. I don't have the exact location. Okay, looks like it would be this property right here, where my mouse is, just above the black arrow.
So very close.
Mm-hmm.
That notes the objection address or the address for the...
Mr. Prather just asked for the objection address. The address of the short-term rental that we're looking at is the purple hatch pattern.
Okay.
Okay. And again, usually this is something that is done administratively, but if there is an objection, it comes to Planning Commission to be heard as a public hearing per code.
Very good.
And the applicant is here.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So at this time, if the applicant would like to come forward and make any comments or state any concerns, or that would be great.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dale Daniel. I am with Orange Pill Properties, the applicant for the short-term rental. So to give you a little background of the property, we purchased property a little over a year ago. It had been abandoned It was in bad shape when we took it on. We invested about $100,000 remodeling it. Also, this house it's architecturally, of interest, and so it has a very mid-century modern architecture, and we incorporated that into our short-term rental design. So this is an MCM rental property. The idea and our demographic for this rental is to bring in some of the not college students, but their parents and people that would be interested in properties like this. You can't really tell from the map that was shown, but this property is located in College Gardens. It is almost adjacent to the university, so it's in walking distance from everything on the university. So I do appreciate the neighborhood interest in this property, and we did, I think Shannon handed out a list of our house rules. So one of the things that doing a short-term rental and the way that we plan to run our short-term rental, as opposed to using this property, which is in a, primarily, college rented neighborhood, we do have a list of rules. And in those rules, it specifically states that no parties are allowed. We do have quiet hours. And something that a lot of people don't know about VRBO is that it does allow us to rate our tenants. We do keep a card on file specifically for damages and that sort of thing. So again, I think from a neighborhood standpoint, this property, should actually deter some of the regular parties that you would, be accustomed to in that area. Because again, we're targeting a different demographic. The money, the investment that we put into it, some of the art and the fixtures that we have are very MCM. They're very dear to us. They're unique. So this property was not designed to serve as a party property. And so, I think that's really what I wanted to bring home this evening. Do you have anything going ahead?
And I passed out the house rules. That is part of the VRBO list. When they sign up, they will get a list of those house rules that they have to abide by, so they are fully aware of what we expect from them. Also, in the photos that I passed around is what the property was when we obtained it. It was rodent infested. The grass was up to the waist, and it was actually vines, so it wasn't even something you could cut down. We have invested near $100,000 in this home. We also do not want parties there. Like Dale stated, that's not our intent. Our intent is for people to come in and enjoy Stillwater, spend their money here, come visit their kids, go to the game. You can walk to the game. You can walk. I actually have people who need to come here. They want to shop downtown, and they want to come take their seniors to go see OSU. And what a great place to do that. Like, you can walk the campus from there. So, like I said, this is not the party place that I think people fear. Also, part of my intent was to target an MCM audience, which there is a huge following of mid-century modern architecture. The house was built in 1960 by Dean Irby, who was an architect at OSU, and actually had a architect firm across from Westwood, where the aquatic healing spa is there. That was his architect studio. So I've added that to what they see when they come visit the house. And it is truly a fun little treasure that I hope to enjoy and share with others. Just in addition to that, I have a list of short-term rentals, and two of them are in that same neighborhood. One is on Redbud Street, which is just one street over. That has already been approved for a short-term rental. And the other one is on Arrowhead Drive.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Yeah.
Sorry. So you'll use VRBO exclusively? That's the mechanism?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And do you all happen to live in Stillwater? I mean, who would deal with
Yes.
problems if something happens?
We both live in Stillwater, and I own Grayish Goods downtown, and
Okay,
so we have also got a Airbnb that will be above that as well
Okay.
coming up. So we will have two.
I mean, I know you can't necessarily, you can put rules in place and, you know, the vast majority of people follow them, but there will be the occasional.
Right.
And so just how do you deal with that? I see that you can remove them immediately.
Yes.
I just think it's important, having some experience in this area, that you make it crystal clear that if the police get called, you're leaving.
Yes, yeah. And we also have the availability of Look Properties to come aid us in that as well. And eventually I would like to have a property management exclusively be in charge of some of these and just kind of be able to have them, you know, deal with some of those extra calls. But
Yeah.
I mean, with this being our first one,
Yeah.
it's just kind of, I'm doing it myself.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question. How many properties does Orange Peel
Have
have that are like this?
that are like that.
Short-term rentals?
This is our first Airbnb that we,
Okay.
or short-term rental. We have another one in Eufaula that will be a long-term rental that is also, it's an eyesore as well, and we purchased it. And it is near one of my other family members that lives down there. So, and then we also have a building in Atoka, Oklahoma. Same condition, so we have a theme.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience this evening that would like to speak in favor of this item? Yes, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. James Box. I live in Edmond. I own multiple properties in this neighborhood, including 116 Melrose. I want to speak in support of the applicants. It was a complete eyesore. There's a lot of pride on this street in the last 2 to 5 years. I think there's a need for this for families that want to come see their kids, like Night Center and other events. There's a lot of quality behind Look Properties, and I know they're there to support the applicant if they need anything, and they're good at what they do. So I would encourage you to vote in favor of the applicant, please.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening in favor of this item that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing none, is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Yes, ma'am, if you'd come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Robin Anderson. I live at 133 South Monticello Drive. I am a homeowner, and I have put over $100,000 in my home. I intend to put even more into our home. It's always a constant upgrade in a home. And we live there because my husband's a professor at the university, and he walks to work. And we have had many neighbors that have moved in here that have left, unfortunately, to have them gobbled up by rental places. Some of these rental places are fabulous. I love my neighbors on both sides of me right now. They're students, and I have called many people many times. I have log books of how many times I've called the police in regards to loud music, loud parties, and commotion, parking all over the place. And it's nice to know that this couple have put all this money into this home, have cared about how much they have put into it, and they've cared about who's going to be renting this property. We have a big investment in trying to make sure that these homes are upgraded and taken care of. Unfortunately, I've also found out that these Airbnbs are not regulated like the apartment rentals are. These rentals, if after 2 or 3 times that the police are called, they can be evicted from these properties. However, in regards to having Airbnbs in our area, I am very concerned about having them in our area because they can't be regulated. they don't have any, I called about this yesterday to one of the people at the city, and there is no regulation. If these things are going to eventually come into our area, we need to have some kind of regulation that has to do with not, because it's a hotel, essentially we're talking about moving in hotels. Instead of apartments, this is a hotel. And so are there regulations for these hotels so that we can make sure that if we have somebody that's consistently coming in, not the same person, but they are allowing this to happen in there, that they will be able to, we'll be able to say, you can't have an Airbnb in here anymore because you're not behaving responsibly. We're talking about a corporation here and there's many that are absentee owners, homeowners that are regulated by all sorts of things. My son has one of these problems with an absentee homeowner. He was renting a house not in Edmond, but another city here in Oklahoma, and this large place wouldn't even take care of the plumbing, let alone flooding the inside of the house and everything like that, because they just didn't have to. They didn't have to worry about those things. There was nothing there to protect them. So I'm talking about making sure that we have something to protect us in our neighborhood, those of us who live there and care about where we're living. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Seeing none, we'll ask staff to come forward and give us alternatives.
Yep. So alternatives are pretty simple. You can approve the application, defer for additional discussion, or deny the application. Any additional questions?
Yeah, Brady, I don't know if this is a question for you, or maybe somebody knows the answer, but if the rules state that you have to be quiet and you're not quiet and the police get called, I'm not sure I understood the situation legally. Can they be evicted?
That would be up to the terms of the renter, my understanding, and any VRBO policies, but you can ask the applicant again.
Okay.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have the power to do that.
I just want to make sure there was a legal path to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Discussion amongst the commissioners?
Well, I did have one question. I probably should have asked it earlier, but I used to ride by this place for years, every day. And I just went by it today, and I've noticed a huge improvement in the appearance of the neighborhood. It's dramatic. It's like night and day. And I was curious what happened in the last few years to that neighborhood that made it such a big improvement.
Go ahead.
I don't know if this is questions that we should be answering, but the Westwood overlay is certainly added to that area.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the positive effects of the Westwood overlay.
Well, what was dramatic to me is there were many houses in disrepair and yards that looked like they hadn't been taken care of in years, and you drive by there today, and it's I don't know, spick and span, if you want. It's really well kept. All of the houses that looked in disrepair are in good repair, and the yards are well taken care of.
I would have to comment that I had the same observation when I went by. I work about a block and a half from here, so I go by all the time. But I don't often go through all the individual streets in the neighborhood, and I did happen to drive through and take a look, and things are looking much better than they were a couple, 3 years ago. So there's definitely an interest in the neighborhood. It looks like that whoever's owning the properties are taking good care of them, and one would surmise, I'll go on a limb and say, having been a Stillwater resident for four decades, when you have rental property that's well cared for, then generally the owner is interacting with the renter. And so you have an active relationship there. It's something where everyone cares and respects about one another. Positive.
Yes, I would concur. I think the spillover effect of the Westwood overlay has affected the neighborhood further north. It's taken a while, but you can see already the impact of that improvement. So I would agree, there has been a dramatic improvement over the past 5 years.
In regards to Airbnbs and Vrbo, how do you pronounce? How do you say it? I've stayed in a lot of them in many places around the U.S. and found them to adhere to the system, and I think that for good reason. They know they aren't going to succeed if they don't. And as a renter, the renter is looking for those. It's sort of, you're looking for the security that apparently comes along with that kind of a contract. And I've been very, very favorably impressed by all the places that I've stayed in that are run under these kind of contracts.
Can I ask questions again back to, or no?
To the applicant?
Yeah.
Well, we had closed the public
We
hearing.
did. I didn't think of it.
Yeah.
Is there a minimum number of nights? 2, okay, because that does help with the party crowd. So I was curious about that. That was it.
Anyone perhaps thinking about a motion or more discussion on the item?
I guess I just think that, it's impossible to not have a problem occasionally, but you do everything you can, which it looks like they have with the house rules, the 2-night minimum, and they've invested, a lot in help to the neighborhood. So I sort of feel like VRBOs are a real thing. They're here to stay, and it just seems like that they'll take care of that property. I mean, they've invested, like they said, $100,000, so they certainly don't want it to get torn up. So it just seems like we should consider that.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to accept?
Without objection, move to approve.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is specific use permit, SUP 2109. This was tabled from the February 15th meeting.
Yes. So next up is the specific use permit at 611 West High Point Drive. The applicant, Two Sons, Inc. This is SUP 21-09, as just noted. On the area map here, as we've seen, the hatch pattern shows the subject site just to the south of High Point and to the east of Boomer Road. The aerial map here shows again the subject site along High Point Drive to the northwest of Cimarron Plaza. This street view shows the building of the subject site and the adequate parking that matches the use of this SUP. As we look at zoning, the zoning is commercial shopping CS, which is a approved zoning for this medical marijuana application. Tongue twister. As we look at future land use map, the reason we do this is just to see what the future use is. Does it remain commercial? And as you can see here, the red area is commercial use, so it does match the future use. And just as a reminder, this item was tabled originally on February 1st. That was when we were looking at the legal opinion regarding the indoor facility at Cimarron Plaza. We received the legal opinion from our counsel, Ms. Childs, and that on February 14th that was not to prohibit the SUP at this location. And then, as you recall, on the 15th, we tabled the item to encourage the applicant and the Payne County Drug Court to meet. We were informed this afternoon, you should have all received an email, as did I, that this meeting did take place. Did you all receive that copy of that email at your desk tonight? Great. And so with that, I know the applicants are here. Do you have any questions of staff before the applicants come up?
I have a point of order. Might be excused to attend to a personal matter real quick.
Yes. Yep.
I don't see any questions for staff. Thank you.
Okay.
At this time, we'd like to ask the applicant to come forward if you would like to state anything to the Planning Commission that you haven't already stated, or reiterate any comments that have been made previously.
Jose Sanchez, 407 South Lowry, Stillwater, Oklahoma. We meet again.
Yes.
Just basically here to answer any questions you might have. I'm not sure what your email said, but we did have what we feel a very productive, positive meeting with the director of the Payne County Drug Court Incorporated facility.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
Nope.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll ask if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to come forward and speak tonight in favor of this item. Seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone present this evening that would like to come forward and speak in opposition of this item. Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and ask staff for alternatives.
Yep, so the alternatives tonight are you can accept the findings and recommend that the City Council approve the proposed SUP as presented. You can find that the SUP is not appropriate use for this property based on the impacts of the surrounding vicinity and do not recommend that the City Council approve the request. And you can find that additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation and table the request once again, but I will say we're up against that 60-day limit, so it would have to be on our next meeting, I believe.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Discussion amongst the commissioners. We've looked at this item a couple of times. We've had the legal opinion rendered on whether this is compliant or not based on distance. We discussed that. And we asked for a meeting to happen between the applicant and the executive director of Payne County Drug Court. That's happened.
I guess I would just say that I found this one really challenging because, you know, I want to be able to support businesses when possible. So it really comes down to how much weight, at least for me, how much weight we put in the opinion of the drug court. And I don't have a way to gauge the accuracy of that weight. So I don't, definitely it seems like that it should be weighed. So, so I thought, you know, on the other hand, as far as how it, is it going to be damaging to Stillwater if we don't approve this? Well, obviously, people have other alternatives. So, so that's also a factor in my mind. But so I think I've reached a decision. So we'll see.
Well, I'll just say I share everything that you just iterated. I think this is a difficult decision because I also share your viewpoint of wanting to support businesses, particularly small businesses. I think that that's what makes a town the size of Stillwater run, frankly, is small businesses that can be successful. There's also the weight of the service that Payne County Drug Court provides to Stillwater, Payne County area, and there are not a lot of these types of services provided elsewhere. And this one has been operating in this area for, I think we've determined, around 20 years. So it's well known. And I'll say, you know, I know people in my life who have struggled with addiction, and it's a difficult thing to struggle with addiction. And if someone is seeking help, whatever can be done to help them get further in that journey and be successful in beating that addiction. And for some, it's a day-to-day thing. I think that those are important things to consider. I do feel that there could be a negative impact on Payne County Drug Court patrons who go there. This may either make them stumble in keeping them away from the drug court if they feel that this is something that they just can't keep themselves away from, because it isn't out in the public. It is kind of back around in a very secluded, intimate kind of location. It's not on a main thoroughfare like a lot of the other medical marijuana dispensaries are. And then the other thing that we had talked about is we had talked about the school and the property that the school uses there in Cimarron Plaza. And currently, it's been determined that what's used there in Cimarron Plaza for the school district is athletic in nature, and that doesn't fall into the category of being too close by law. If in the future the school district would decide to put an academic use in the spaces that are within the distance that would be restrictive, then we would have something non-compliant. And I think that's something that should also be considered. So those are my thoughts.
I do want to express my sincere appreciation for the applicant and for the Payne County Drug Court for actually doing what was advised, and that's to get together, have a frank discussion, hammer out any issues. Sounds like the meeting went incredibly well. Everybody was cordial. There was no angry discourse. I'm very, very grateful for that. I think more good comes from those when it comes to a dispute between applicants and objectors. And I wish that would happen more in this community, even prior to getting to this point. But I want to really express my gratitude for you guys, your willingness to do that and having those discussions and trying to work things out. So thank you guys very much for doing that.
Other comments or perhaps a motion?
One piece of guidance that I would offer to the commission is that if the will of the commission is to recommend denial to the city council, I would respectfully request that the motion indicate based upon the comments made by the planning commissioners. That way, it's clear to the applicant and will be clear to the city council why you're recommending denial. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Council, may I ask for some guidance, if this is an appropriate time to ask for that?
Sure.
Would an objection of this fall under unnecessary, arbitrary, and capricious decision making? Did I phrase that right?
You did, and you know, it's kind of interesting because there really aren't as many cases as you might think on denial of zoning decisions, particularly specific use permits. But the specific use permit process is a little bit different than a regular rezoning application process, because that's really where the arbitrary and capricious standard primarily lies. But the purpose of the whole purpose of a specific use permit process is to give the commission and the city council some additional leeway And the whole idea behind putting marijuana operations within this process, it's designed to allow you the opportunity to consider things that you might not otherwise have the opportunity to consider. The only thing that I will say is that municipalities are fairly heavily preempted in terms of marijuana retail establishments, but statute does give you the ability to impose, to look at your zoning code, and in this case, the specific use permit process. But based upon the comments that you all have made, which, and I'm just going to summarize here, but it sounds an awful lot like you're concerned about the close proximity to the substance abuse and drug court programming, even though it doesn't fall within the statutory exemption for the statute. The close proximity to the school is a concern. Those types of things. Of course, you can't ever read the tea leaves as to what a court will do, but I do believe that you have articulated some concerns that it at least will, tend to meet the health, safety, and welfare of the overall community, which is important. And I'm sorry I talked so long. That's a lawyer thing.
That was a fantastic answer. Thank you very much. Without objection, I would make a motion to deny the applicant based on the will of the commission due to public health and safety concerns.
And the comments made by the commissioners.
Yeah, excuse me, thank you, yeah.
I would second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a specific use permit, SUP 2201.
Okay. All right, the next item is, SUP 22-01, specific use permit for a medical marijuana dispensary at 102 North Main Street. The area map here shows the hatch pattern at the corner of Elm and Main Street, at the northwest corner. The aerial map shows, again, the location of the proposed dispensary, kind of catty corner to Shepherd's, Conoco. Here is a street view that shows the adequate parking for this specific use. As we look at zoning, it's in the CG commercial zoning, which fits the specific use permit. Our land development code requires an SUP for medical marijuana in a commercial zoning such as CG. Again, future land use map along Main Street, of course, remains in the red as commercial. I believe the applicant, or he is here, I met him earlier, Brendan, but is here to answer any questions that you may have. But before that, do you have any questions of staff?
I do have a question, and perhaps it's better directed to the applicant. It appears that there is a dispensary operating adjacent to this, just behind it, and so I had a little bit of question as to if this dispensary was moving to the Main Street frontage. Okay, he can
Yep.
answer that when he comes up. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
All right, that's all I had. Anybody else? Nothing? Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. If you just come forward, state your name and address for the record.
How you doing? I'm Brandon Isley. I've got several addresses right now, 102 and a half North Main Ave, adjacent, above the building that we're trying to move to. I've got several cannabis companies in and around Payne County and Stillwater. Doc Green's opened up. Can you put the street view up again by chance?
You bet. Set that arrow right there.
So the little green building behind the black building that you see, that's where we've been since February 6th or 9th of 2019. We've been there the entire time, to my knowledge, hasn't caused many issues, if any. Ran it ethically, legally, responsibly, still in business, happy for that. I'm just trying to move. It's literally 2 or 4 inches. The flashing on the roof touches each other because they're that close. So yeah, I'm just trying to scoot over. My plan is to keep the green building as well. For what purpose, I have no idea, but I'll most likely be standing in front of you for that too. So
Just moving to the black building.
that's correct. Yeah, literally next door. Charlie Hims, he's my landlord. The building, it used to be Empower Fitness. The picture there shows it. When they decided to move, it opened up. I didn't want one of my competitors to get it, so I've been paying rent on it ever since, and the intention is to move there. It's a nicer building. It's a bigger building. It's on Main Street. It gives us, I believe, 7 or 8 parking spots that additionally we didn't have. I'm still leasing the green building behind it from the McCollums. The empty lot next door that we're currently using for parking, I plan on also keeping. Funds allowing me, of course. And so, yeah, my intention is to keep both buildings, simply move this one over. Simple as that.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Mhm.
Any other questions
me?
for the applicant? Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Is there anyone else this evening present that would like to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, is there anyone else this evening that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask staff to present alternatives.
Yep, alternatives is you can accept findings and recommend that the city council approve the proposed specific use permit as presented. You can accept findings and recommend that the city council approve the proposed specific use with conditions, noting what the conditions are being recommended. Find that the specific use permit is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the city council approve the request, or you can find that additional information is in discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation, and table the request to a date certain.
Thank you. Discussion amongst the commissioners, or perhaps a motion?
Seeing no objections from the public, I would make a motion to accept the findings and recommend that the city council approve the proposed specific use permit as presented.
Do you want to make a condition that they don't, and this may not be an issue, but and the applicant may agree to that, but with regard to the existing, do you object to the commission finding that you're not going to operate both marijuana businesses out of both locales? Is that a problem?
No, based on the zoning and planning, the only cannabis companies that can be in either one of those buildings, to the best of my knowledge, is a dispensary. It would make absolutely 0 sense to have a dispensary in both locations. So if that's something you want me to agree to, I'm all on board.
So
The
sorry
overhead
to.
for one is pretty steep. I can't have 2 next door.
Okay, yeah. So sorry for jumping in there, but I thought that might be something you might want to consider.
If I may, just for my own clarification, what would be the
You
downside?
can go ahead and come back to the podium.
What would be the downside of having a dispensary just right next door to each other? Again, in my opinion, it makes zero business sense to do so. But just for me understanding the way all this works.
This isn't really a legal answer, but I'll just go ahead and jump since I'm the one that came up with the idea. I guess that I think that it's always the goal of the council to get sales tax generating businesses in there. And if you start to duplicate services, like you said, it may not make sense financially for you. I mean, obviously you're an astute business person, but as far as the planning commission and the council and the citizens are concerned, since that's how we pay for fire, police, and all the other services, diversifying the uses can be particularly important.
Okay, I was just wanting clarification on that, especially since there's, I think, 6 of us within a block and a half. If I'm not mistaken, I was first for the record. Not sure why everyone wants to open up next to me, but it seems to be the case. Literally, the alley behind it, 405 Buds, across the street from me, Calais Roots, 2 buildings down, House of Dank across the street from that. Forget the name of them, but they're there. And then 2 buildings over, there was one that went out, and then another building on the other side of that, another one. So, and I think there's 38 of us, pushing 40 of us with all the new stuff coming in. So I mean, we're definitely.
And thank you for making my point, because I did,
like I started
not
to
to
say,
put too fine a point on it, but that was.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds good. Any other questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Prather, would you like to amend your motion to include council's recommendation?
Sure, I would take that. I don't know how to say it exactly like you did,
But perhaps it would just be to approve this specific use permit, or recommend approval of the specific use permit conditioned upon them moving their operations from their current business to the planned business. And you can just say so moved if you like.
So moved. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. All right, motion passes 5-0. All right. With that, we move to the next item on the agenda, which is miscellaneous items from staff, planning commissioners, or the city attorney for discussion and possible action. The only item we have listed is the next planning commission meeting, which will be March 22nd, 2020. Now, last item on the agenda would be adjournment.
Without objection, move to adjourn.
A second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. We'll now vote. Okay. Motion passes 5-0. We're now adjourned. Thank you.